Dozo onegaishimasu. Hey guys, it's Kihon Nathan Ogden here with Tengoku-Ryu Karate and Kobujutsu. And in this video, I'm going to be going over the techniques, or the Kihon Waza, the basic techniques for set 3 of our exercises that we do as part of our Hojo Endo in class, but are also part of your techniques required for your rank test. So this is the third set of basic techniques that consist of blocks, strikes, and kicks or foot techniques. And these are probably the most challenging in terms of how to do them. And so the requirement level here is about blue or purple belt, which is considered intermediate, a beginner to intermediate level in our school. Now the first technique I'm going to show you is kind of unique in the way that we do it. And this is called the hooking block, or in Japanese it's referred to as kake-uke. And I'm going to demonstrate a few of those, and then I'll talk about the details. So, stepping back into position, and step forward. So we step forward, this hand comes across, and in checking position, this hand circles around, grabs, and pulls. One more time, step forward, hand comes across in a checking manner. Well, the hand comes across to the elbow, just like in our previous techniques. With my palm facing down, circles around, grabs, and pulls. One more time, stepping. Okay, now let's look at the details of that. So as I do this technique, I'm starting, and this is a grabbing and a pulling and a holding technique used a lot in Turi or Torite, joint locking, joint manipulation techniques that are hidden within kata and techniques as well. As we do this, you see the technique in a more normal routine or exercise as we do it in class. It's going to look more like this. I'll just do a few of these. So each, ni, san, in this manner. And what I'm doing here is there's a lot of different techniques. You'll see this particular technique is checking, but this can also be a trap against my body. If someone has reached and grabbed me in this manner, I'm trapping against them to pull them in close to my body, and wrapping around to control, to pull in for a knee or a follow-up technique. This is also used for grabbing and controlling for hikite, to do locks and to do controls. So there's a lot of things we could get into, but for the most part, this hand is coming across, another hand is hooking and then pulling. Coming across, hooking and pulling. It's very similar to the other techniques, only that you're using a lot more open hand than closed fist in the particular way that's done. Okay, let's look at the next one. This is what we call circular knife hand, or we call mawashi, shutouke, roundhouse or circular. And this one's done, instead of in this manner, it's done in this manner. It's done in a circular fashion. Okay, some people might refer to this as a palm heel block, but we call it a shuto because we're using this particular part, and it's very much like a knife hand. So let me demonstrate 3 of those, and then we'll talk about the details. So from here, we're going to get into position, and this has an open hand chamber, just like the kake-uke or the previous block that I just did. From here, we step forward again. Open hand comes across, checks. Other hand comes to the elbow, circles around, and lands right in front of the shoulder. Other hand comes back as if it were closed, but we're doing open hand. Same relative position with the chamber. Step again, check, circle around, and block. One more time, step, hand comes across to the elbow, underneath, circles, and the hand pulls back and blocks in this manner. Okay, let's look at it from closer view and how we do it in a stationary position. So as I do this, I'm blocking or checking or trapping. There's a lot of different applications for this particular movement. The main thing you want to realize in this technique and the previous technique is that it's just kind of coming an open hand checking movement here. I'm coming to the outside, and then I'm doing a circular motion. One more time, coming across, and then using my hips to generate the power. This is done in Seisan Kata, it's done in Anku, and it's done in a lot of our self-defense exercises because palm heel, open hand strikes lend to a lot of different things that you can do. One of the things that open hands allow for you to do is to grab, to control, to hook, to press, whereas a fist is kind of limited. I mean, you can strike with the back of the knuckles, you can punch with it, but in karate and self-defense, generally speaking, there's going to be, if you're close to your opponent, there's probably going to be some grabbing and some gripping and some controlling and some pressing and those kinds of things. So we want to make sure that we're not just relying on punch to be our only technique, and to be able to utilize open hand techniques with some familiarity versus just punching with our fists. Now, the next technique that we're going to demonstrate, those are considered blocks, but also strikes. It's going to be our overhead hammer fist strike. Now, where this starts from is it starts from a position of being here, just kind of like I was driving a knife down. It's relative to my shoulder. I'll come forward again so you can see. It's going to be relative to my shoulder in terms of where it ends. And there's a slight bend here, and there's about a fist distance right here underneath my body. Now, when we fold for this, or as we're doing these in class, there's a follow-up technique that we do with this, or preceding technique actually, and I'll show you how that's done. So from the beginning position, left hand forward, when we get ready to perform the next technique, we will open our hand and we'll press down with this hand. So we're pressing down in this manner, then we step through and the hand comes up by our ear, and then it comes straight overhead and down. One more time, stepping forward, this hand opens up, pushes down, steps forward, comes up by the ear, over and down. Again, here, pushing down, stepping forward, coming here, over and down. Now there's a couple reasons why we do this. Again, there's hidden techniques in this that are not obvious to the beginner, but this particular technique is a control, it's a trap, it's a parry. So we get used to doing this particular technique as part of combination. You'll see this actually in our safe zone kata. Once we do this particular technique, you'll see that the hand comes here and then it starts over the top. And this is a hidden technique of a dropping elbow or thrusting elbow to the front, and then following with a hammer fist strike right to the nose. So if you imagine a person has grabbed you or grabbed your lapel, this is designed to be heavy hands. The Chinese, I think, call this bagua. It's being very heavy in your body, just kind of dropping and sinking your body, but I'm dropping here and controlling, and at the same time, I'm coming over the top. And it may be that if they move in, this catches first, and then this follows up. If they're more at a distance, I'm pulling them towards me, and at the same time, I'm dropping that right into the bridge of the nose. So it comes here, and then here, just like so. And that's how that technique is done in class for the basic form of that. Now, the next technique that we're going to look at is our back fist strike. And then just like the previous technique, this has a preceding hand technique that kind of helps it set up for that. So let's look at that. Back fist strike actually looks almost like our cross-body block in the starting position. So our fist is in alignment with our shoulder, our elbow is in alignment with our solar plexus. Now, when we step with this technique, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to step, and our hand is going to come across our body like shuto. So it comes across the body to the opposite shoulder. Comes here, and then it makes a fist, and it extends to the center, strikes, and then it pulls back. Again, step forward, we're going to come across the body, close the fist, extend, pull in. One last time, step forward, come across the body, extend, pull in. And again, if you're starting to put two and two together, you can see that these techniques have multiple applications. Again, in this particular technique, if a person is reaching and grabbing you, you could be considering this to be a strike in and pulling a person close to you to get this kind of effect where they would be pulled in this manner if they grab or pulling. So pulling and striking down, immediately exploding with the back fist, and then going back to control or to a 280 lock or tori-te lock, joint lock thing, or different kind of control. Also, this is trapping. So I'm trapping, striking, back to control. And this hand can change positions interchangeably as they need to if I'm dealing with another attack from the opposite side. So again, as we start here, this comes across, 1, 2, 3. Comes across, 1, 2, 3. Okay? And the last part is with the fist closed. All right, so the next technique is spear hand strike, or nukite. And this one is just like the previous one in the previous set, except this time we're doing vertical instead of horizontal. So our hand is turned this way instead of here. Now, as I mentioned in our previous video, spear hand is not always taught as like a penetrating technique or hitting with the fingertips. A lot of times it's meant to be a technique where we're shoving through. For instance, if I was in a clinch with a person and I want to overhook or swim underneath, I'd come through, put my fingertips close to my body to be flattened out so that I have very minimal space that I need to get through. And then from there, using that technique to drive through and then to underhook and control. So these techniques are not just techniques that you see like in the movies where they're stabbing through and pulling the heart out. But let's demonstrate this particular technique for the sake of doing it for our Kihon Waza, or our basic techniques. So again, starting from this position, just like we did the previous one here, we're going right for the throat or the neck area. So each, again, high, knee, and then side. Okay, so again, when you do this, for the sake of practice and form, we want rigid fingers, good and tight, because we don't want our fingers getting extended or grabbed or controlled, things of that nature. And again, it's all relative. Doesn't matter if the hand is this way or this way. It really depends on what the situation dictates, but there are a lot of overlapping applications of those two techniques. All right, the last techniques that we're going to do are our last kicks for our set. The first one is our mawashi gari, or roundhouse kick. Now, the way that we perform roundhouse kick, it's a little difficult to do without a pad or something, because it's easy to get off balance with this, but just bear with me as you see the technique. So when we practice mawashi gari, or roundhouse kick, you're going to kick, a lot of styles kick with the top of the foot, or this top of the foot, and you can kick with that, but generally speaking in our application, we're going to kick with the shin bone, like Thai boxers or Siamese Tigwa techniques. So as we do this, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open our hips by pivoting our front foot, which allows for our pelvic to lead. Our hip generates the power. So as we do this, we step off the line and allow the hip almost dragging our leg behind us. And as we do that, as we extend and allow the leg to kind of lumber through the air, the last part extends from the knee and then snaps from the knee to give kind of a bullwhip type effect. So as we do this, it's going to be here and then extending. Now, if I had a shield here, somebody holding a shield, you could say I really put my weight and my rotation into this and really generate a lot of power. But as just demonstrating here in the open air, it's 1, 2, and again, remember, turn that front foot to open your hips, and 3, and then setting down. And these kicks are done, again, mainly to the lower body. Most of our kicks in Tengoku-Ryu, are done to the lower body, and not so much to the upper body. Now, that's not to say that you can't do them to the upper body. They're devastating kicks. If you kick somebody to the ribs, to the kidneys, it's going to hurt. But generally speaking, we want to kick to an area that hopefully will keep them from being able to stand, because most people, if they can't stand, they can't fight, or they can't attack. So again, kicking with the shin bone primarily to the thigh, to the inside thigh, to the knee, and to the leg. And when we kick, we want to, first of all, open up our hips by turning the front foot, the leading foot, outward. And then we're coming around. So turning outward, around, you see how my hip and my pelvic area are leading from the side. If I turn to the side, you can kind of see this. I turn my foot, and then I lead with my body. And then as I spin with the momentum of my body, it's going to come all the way around and then extend by snapping from the knee. Now the front foot, when you are in the most elongated position or the final position, your heel should actually be pointing in the direction that you're facing. So as I start here, when I pivot, I'm going to be pivoting all the way around. When I get a little further back, you can maybe see my heel. So in this position, as I step out, I spin, and the final extension of that technique, my heel actually is going to be pointing towards my target. And that is Mawashi-geri, or roundhouse kick. Now, the next three are really easy kicks, and this is taken primarily from Nahachi kata, and this is a stamping kick. And from here, all we do is we're going to bring the foot up, inside, and then stomp down. Inside, stomp down. Inside, stomp down. Now, if you're doing this on concrete, be careful. You don't want to get a stone bruise. But the idea here is that somebody is kicking at our foot or our leg, we're covering, blocking, and then we're coming down the shin bone, or stomping into the instep. This is twofold technique. Coming in here to protect myself, and then returning by stomping into the instep to try to break the foot, and using the shin as a platform to scrape down as I go into that stomp. Relatively simple, very effective, especially if you're bound up. You can bring the foot up, still close, come down. You can even turn the foot this way, do the same thing. So it's very effective in close, being able to push down and to attack the knee. I like to think about, a lot of times if I get my foot up high enough, I'm gonna think about the knee being a foot peg. I'm gonna put my foot right up on their knee and try to push down as hard as I can, using it as a step. So that's great if you're bound up against a wall, you can't move. Great technique to get somebody to open up, create space, or to cripple their foot. The second one is sweeping kick. This is used for sweeping people off their feet, but it's also used to attack in close, much like the previous technique. And as you see this technique, it comes across. Just think about, I'm out here on a concrete floor. If I just wanted to move something out of my way, just kind of bringing my foot across. Now, as I bring it across, I'm actually bringing my foot up. If the camera can see this, I'm bringing it up to where that you can see the bottom of my foot and my heel. And I want to put that heel right into somebody's ankle bone. Now, the cool thing about this particular technique and the previous technique is that it's also used for stopping kicks. It's used to block forward motion and kicks. And again, if somebody moves into me, if they step into me deeply, I can put this foot higher up on their knee or their leg and push down as I do a kosudachi. So as I move into a technique, you see this movement in kata like pasai or basai. Some styles go to the back, some styles go to the front in this manner. But again, this particular way of doing it is, even in the hachi, as you see a cross step, can be here or here. And again, it just comes across in this manner. Very simple, very effective. The last is a reaping kick, or sometimes called a hooking kick. And this is done like a front snap kick, except we go past and then we pull back. So I come up, I kick through, and then I pull back. I come up, I kick through, and I pull back. And it's pretty self-explanatory, right? So from the side, I come up, I kick through, I pull back. Come up, kick through, pull back. And this is designed primarily for attacking the legs to hook, take a person off balance on the outside, to hook to the inside to control the leg, grapevining them so that they can't move the leg, or to actually come in behind the leg and to bend by cross-stepping. Again, all relative to what you do in kata like Nahachi. But this particular technique can be done low, it can be done much higher, it can be done to the inside in this manner, or we just kind of augment the way that the kick is done. It's the same technique, it's just slightly done different. If a person has their leg more here in between your legs and you have one on the outside, you can come in here and attack in this manner, kicking back into the leg, or kicking here and then back using a combination of kicks in that manner. And you'll find that in Tengoku-Ryu, most of our kicks are primarily done below the waist. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't ever kick above the waist. We do, for the sake of practice and just coordination development, and even for kids, flexibility, things of that nature. But in self-defense, or Goshin Waza, or self-defense techniques, most of our kicks are always going to be below the waist. And most of the defenses against attacks, we're going to use the legs to block against. So think of it this way: anything above the waist, we're going to use the hands. Anything below the waist, we're going to use the legs and the feet, primarily as our offense and our defense. So hopefully this video will help you with the final set 3 of our Kihon Waza and our Hojondu techniques that we do each class, and some of your basic techniques for your first several belts for rank. どうもありがとうございました。